Hi, welcome to 2020 Tasty Treats with GourmetQuilter. I'm Susan Claire, GourmetQuilter, and we're doing a whole series this time of 20 parts on the Leftovers Pantry. So this is part 3 of the 20, and we've already set up our pantry. We've got some drawers or containers or bags or something that we've labelled with everything, and we've already cut lots of strips that are in our drawers. So this is my 1.5 inch drawer, so I've got some full width strips, I've got some less than full width strips sitting here, and I've actually got some of them out here. So I've done that with all the different sizes. I still have more leftovers to cut. I always have a whole lot of leftovers that need cutting into something. So what I thought we'd do today was, having set our pantry up, having cut everything into strips, or started cutting things into strips, so that we know where to go to get some 1.5 inch strips, we'll just take it a step further this time, and we're going to cut some squares. Now, we don't have to cut everything into little squares, especially not the smaller sizes. However, if you wanted to make things that required lots of little 9 patches or 4 patches or small squares somewhere along the way, checkerboard things, you may want to cut a few. But I'm not suggesting that you go through and cut every strip into little squares. Leave some longer lengths, but let's cut a few of them. So I've set a few of just the narrow 1.5 inch strips out here. I've stacked them so that I've got usually 4 layers of fabric sitting on top of each other, and always put the smaller length on top so that you can see. And having said that, I see that I haven't done that here. So that you can see, if you were slicing all the way along, where you're going to run out of fabric. So it's a good idea so that you can see what you're doing. Now, I've just taken the edges just past my end line on my board so that I can just trim those edges. Now, if you've still got selvages on there, these have got selvages, make sure you're trimming off the selvage. We like to have them off when we're sewing, because the selvages can behave differently later on when things are washed or things like that. So I've just lined several up. Now, because these are only narrow, we can cut several at a time, because my ruler is longer than that. So I can actually position that as if it was one piece of fabric and cut several at a time. So I'm just going to trim off those ends so that we've got a nice starting point. And then I can just slide along, because I use the board a lot for my measurements, to 1.5 inches. So I'm just putting my 1/2 inch marker on a line here so that it cuts in 1.5 inches from the other end there. And then I can just slice that. I can keep coming if I'm cutting more, and come along another 1.5 inches, and again I can slice that. So I can cut several at a time doing it that way. So this doesn't have to be leftovers, you can cut this way anyway. And then I'm going to keep those. So try and do a variety of colours, because we're going to have a little play with these later on in the series. And what I like to do then is, perhaps because I've now cut them into squares, rather than having them rattle around in the drawer, I might use some sort of a clip arrangement, and I can store them together so that when I go into this drawer here, I'm very ready with a bunch of squares that are kept together there, and I can keep my strips, shorter length strips. Now, if these pieces are not large enough to use, guess where they go? We can pop them out. But these can all come back in here for use later on, because we might be doing something else with other things. So it's just a good way to have a stock of things. Really, all I'm trying to do is set up the pantry so that we've got a stock of things when we want to make something, that we can go to our pantry just like we would in the kitchen. We can go and get out the flour and sugar and things to make a cake. Here we can come and get our squares or strips or various things. So I'm just suggesting that you go through and cut some squares from all the different sizes, because you never know when you're going to want a different size square. I've got some other strips out here. So these ones are 3 inches wide. They've come out of my 3 inch drawer. They're not full width. However, I've got them so that I can line them up again. I'm just going to trim them, and I'm not sure how many of these I can do at a time because of the length of the ruler. But it just means that you can cut more than one at a time. So these fabrics are folded, so they're double here. And I'm pretty sure that ruler is longer than those. So as long as your ruler is longer than your fabric, and even though it's got a bit of a cut edge, I'm still just going to trim that up so that I know I'm starting with a nice edge there. And then, because they're 3 inch and we want squares, I'm going to come across to 3 inches. and I can come again and do another lot of 3 inches. So I can go through, the chances are there's quite a few different colours in our leftovers in strips and things, so that we can have a good variety of colours. Make sure you get some colours that you might put with them to contrast as perhaps a background or that sort of thing, so that there's choices when we want to do something else with them. And other than that, I'm going to put a clip on those because those are now square, and I know that they're square that way because they've got something around them. And then they can go into the 3-inch drawer, and so on and so on, so that I can keep things. What I've been generally doing is full width fabric strips are going to the back of my drawers, and then I can put squares and shorter lengths to the front so that I know where I'm rummaging at the time. So what I'm suggesting is that you go through and cut squares from all the different sizes. I think I've done some here already of some 6.5 inch. I need to go through and do a few more as well. But I find that keeping a few squares is a really handy thing, as well as the strips, because just sometimes we want to make something quickly and we know that we've already got things to that stage. So we're going to be doing some other things as well. So that was cutting squares for our pantry and stocking it in that way. Don't forget to keep including more and more of your leftovers, because I'm quite sure that there are more out there somewhere. Sometimes we've got leftovers from our backings. It might be some odd long strip from the backing of a quilt, but it's good fabric, so let's cut it up and put it in the leftovers. You might have binding leftovers. Let's pop them in our drawers. You might have any number of pieces, funny shapes, cut them up, put them in your drawers. So on that note, when there's some funny shapes, I thought I had a funny shape in here, I might have already trimmed it, so that you can cut. You might only have enough to get a square out of because it's a funny shape for some reason. Then cut a square out of it. So you can use pretty much everything you've got, and if you go for the largest you can get, or if you think you want a lot of smaller squares of that colour, make that decision and pop them in your pantry, so that when you're ready you can just go and select the bits that you're looking for. So go ahead, get some squares cut from each of the sizes, and then next time we'll come back and we'll do something more to add to our pantry.